Welcome back to Advocacy, Alchemy with Professor Ross. Today we have a good one, guys. Today we're examining a case that's really shaking the communities in Detroit. A case involving a woman named Brandee Pierce, a 41-year-old mother charged with multiple offenses, including first-degree murder, in connection with the death of her 9-year-old son, Zamar King III. This tragic case not only challenges our understandings of criminal behavior, but also offers us a chance to dissect how evidence is gathered, scrutinized, and ultimately one day will be used in court. Remember, regardless of the charges, every defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Let's jump in.
Thank you all for coming this morning. I have stood at this podium many times and talked about how horrific, tragic, and shocking certain cases are. Each time thinking there are some future alleged facts that could be worse than what I'm talking about at the time. Knowing all the while, though, that there's always a worse set of facts on the horizon. Well, that day has come again. So I want to talk about a case of a young boy named Zamar King III. The alleged facts in this case are that we are announcing today. On January 6th of 2025, the Detroit Police Department was notified and summoned to a house on Whittingham in Detroit. They had been contacted by the landlord that owned that house. When he went to that house, the landlord contacted him when he went to that house to prepare it for a new tenant. That he called the police because he found a shallow grave in the backyard of the home on Whittingham. Upon arrival, the police were shown that grave where a human foot was sticking out of the ground. The foot was believed to be belonged to a small child. After an extensive investigation by quite a few agencies, and the chief will talk about that in a minute, the buried body was discovered to be 9-year-old Zamar King III. That the mother of young Zamar was 41-year-old Brandee Pierce. It's alleged that she killed him, and that the cause of death found by the medical examiner was smothering and neck compression. So I want to just further go ahead and tell you what other facts about this case. It's alleged that she purchased a shovel. She bound him by tying his hands and feet together and dug a hole in the background of the house on Whittingham, where she had been living for a short time. She then put him in this hole and covered him with dirt. That after killing her son, she and her other son, who was 3 years old, moved to Georgia, Cobb County to be exact. It was determined that this, in fact, happened sometime in October of 2024. That Zamar's mother, Brandee Pierce, is currently in Cobb County, Georgia, and we will be requesting her to be extradited back to Michigan. We are charging Brandee Pierce today with 1 count of murder in the first degree premeditation, which carries a life without parole sentence, mandatory. Count 2 is homicide felony murder. Again, the mandatory penalty is life in prison without the possibility of parole. Our 3rd count is child abuse in the first degree, life or any term of years in prison. The first degree child abuse is the felony to make out the felony murder we are alleging. Count 4 is tampering with evidence, criminal case punishable by more than 10 years in prison. And the 5th one is interfering with, concealing and interfering with the death of an individual, 5 years, of course, that being 9-year-old Zamar King. As always, this defendant is presumed innocent unless or until proven guilty. I should tell you that Judge Aaliyah Sabri of the 36th District Court authorized these charges yesterday. And since we will be requesting extradition, we will notify you all when in fact she is back in the state of Michigan. So of course there is no next day for court. Again, let me just repeat, these charges and allegations are quite serious. They're deadly, they're shocking, every platitude that you can think of, but again, Ms. Pierce is still presumed to be innocent unless or until proven guilty. So I'm going to have the chief say a couple words to you, and then we'll answer some questions for you if you can.
Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. As Madam Prosecutor said, this case is rather shocking. In my 27-year career, I don't remember seeing anything like this, but I just want to thank, of course, Madam Prosecutor. I want to thank our law enforcement partners and everyone who helped out with this. The FBI was instrumental. Michigan State Police was instrumental in helping out as well, along with Cobb County and DeKalb County in the state of Georgia, their district attorney's office, And I just really want to express how proud I am of the hardworking men and women of the Detroit Police Department who helped bring this case to where it is today with these charges. I want to thank, of course, of our Major Crimes Division, the Commander Rebecca McKay, Captain Marcus Thurkill, Sergeant Ashley Peterson, Detective Kelly Lucy, who is here with us, Detective Lisa Johnson, and then the officer who is leading the case, Officer Isaac Yamas, and the members of the Western Squad. The Detroit Police Department works relentlessly on behalf of victims, and we are confident that there will be accountability for this. And as Madam Prosecutor said, of course, everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Thank you much.
It seems to all of us who do this work on a daily basis, there's been just a large number of tragic cases that have happened to our children, worse than we have seen. So it's our hope that we don't continue to see these, but I know that's probably false hope that I'm having. Before we go any further, I want to introduce Tina Ripley, who has worked together on this case very hard. She will be trying this case. Louisa Papoulis is to her right and your left. She is the Deputy Chief of the Special Victims Unit. Kelly Gleason is to my immediate left, and she is the Chief of the Special Victims Unit. And again, if the Chief would introduce his people that are standing here, that would be helpful.
Sergeant, I'm sorry, Detective Lisa Johnson is right here. Also, officer in charge of the case, Isaac Yamas. Kelly Lucy, Detective. Ashley Peterson, Marcus Thurkill. Marcus is in the back there as well. And then Captain Rebecca McKay.
Okay. We'll take some short questions at this point, if you have any.
Not that you guys needed it to get a charging decision, but any indication as to why, a possible motive in this case?
You know, I don't talk about motives at the time. Any further evidence and charging decision will come out when we go to court. So, again, we can't comment on that at this time.
Has there been any communication with Samar's mother at all from you guys?
We did speak with his father yesterday, actually this morning, actually. So yes, we have had contact with the family, and the Detroit Police Department has had contact with the family as well.
So forgive me, I must be confused because I'm not listening close enough, so I apologize, but the relationship of the suspect to the child?
Mother.
Okay.
Yes. 41-year-old Brandee Pierce was his mother.
Okay.
And did Samar's father live in Michigan?
He lives in this area, yes.
And was he aware of his child's death?
Again, we talked to him. I don't think he was aware until recently, but again, we did speak with him this morning.
Thank you.
And we'll be speaking with him, of course, further as time goes on.
And those are oh, go ahead.
No, please, you got it.
Those are her two kids, Samar and the 3-year-old?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Prosecutor, where's the 3-year-old right now? What's his status? What's his condition?
Again, he's with his mother in Georgia right now. And he was, and now he's in foster care here, I believe.
Can
Is
you
it foster
provide,
care locally?
In Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
are you able to provide any further information on the timeline of, you mentioned October, and then what,
That'll come out in court.
but in regard to how she ends up in Georgia with the other child, or with
All I can
family,
tell, all I can tell you at this point in time is she left shortly after she buried the body in the backyard, and went to the state of Georgia.
So the landlord call to DPD was on January 6th, correct?
The landlord call was on January 6th. The police were notified. They immediately went out to the house on Whittingham. They were shown that grave by the owner of that particular property. They saw the foot sticking out of the ground, and it went from there. The chief notified me immediately upon that discovery.
she had rented that home?
I assume she rented it. I don't know.
Madam Prosecutor, just got this from a coworker, some indication that,
Who's talking? I can't see you.
Randy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can you speak to this at all? I'll just read this verbatim. The source indicated yesterday that the mother claims they were horsing around and playing some sort of choking game.
I'm not going to comment on the evidence in the case.
Also, was this case file sent over to you guys more than once at all? And if so, what elements were needed to get to a charging decision?
Oh, we're not going to talk about that. Yeah. The police contact us when they have information. We talk often back and forth. And then once we get a completed investigation, we make a charging decision. Anybody else?
Do you know how long the mom had been living at that rental house?
For a short period of time. It's a very short period of time. Thank you, everybody. Oh, do you have something else?
Well, I think I know the answer to your question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In regard to my question is, potentially this was accidental, somebody panics and then leaves the state, intentional, are you able to offer anything in regard to intent or non-intent?
I am not going to do that. Yeah. You'll find out in court.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we're watching a news conference talking about the charges that have been levied in Detroit. Now, the woman has moved to Atlanta or the Atlanta area. So let's walk through the sequence of events as this investigation has unfolded. In October 2024, authorities alleged that Brandee Pierce smothered and compressed Zamar's neck, causing his death. Following that act, she reportedly bound his hands and feet, purchased a shovel, and buried his body in the backyard. Now, she was renting a home there in Detroit. Now, on January 6, 2025, while the property was being prepared for a new person to come rent the house, the landlord discovered a foot. Because of that, as you can understand, there was a police investigation. An autopsy later revealed it was Zamar. Now, interestingly enough, she's had some run-ins in the past. Now, since October 2024, in January, when this young child's body was found, she's had several run-ins with the law in Georgia. On December 20th, 2024, the Brookhaven police charged her with child cruelty when they found her younger son in distress in a locked car. Georgia's Agency for Child Protective Services, it's called the Department of Family and Children Services, was called out, and the child has been placed in their custody. And it seems that Miss Pierce has had some other run-ins with some other allegations here recently with some drugs and stuff of that nature. Understand that if she's convicted of murder charges, Pierce could face life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This case takes us from a disturbing crime scene to what's going to be a high-stakes courtroom battle. Every detail is going to be scrutinized. They're also going to look at the timing of these events. Let's take a closer look at the timing of the incidents and consider what might be revealed about this whole situation. So going back to that October 2024. Now, the killing of this child suggests a deliberate act, possibly premeditated, given her efforts to conceal that crime. Not only did she bury the body, she then moved across the country. She moved to Georgia from Michigan. Now, she's presumed innocent, but those are the facts. Facts are she did move across the country. All right, let's look at this other. December 2024, she was arrested in Georgia for child cruelty. Now, from what I've seen, reports are saying that there was a child locked in a car. The child was in distress. There were feces, things of that nature, so it was intense. You have January 6, 2025, just last month, they discovered this grave. On January 10th, 2025, Miss Pierce was arrested in Georgia. Looking at this timeline, we can really hone in on several key points. You got the concealment, okay? Anytime someone doesn't alert the authorities when something's happened or a person has passed, every action they do is concealment. It's sad, but it shows almost a pattern where you have this happening with the older child. This child was 9 years old who died, and this younger child who was, I believe, 3 years old, with the cruelty charges over in Georgia. I will say that this seems like either somebody who has some issues, either drugs or mental issues. And also, doesn't it seem like everything began to happen very quickly? Began getting in trouble all the time or always having an issue. Sometimes the whole house of cards just falls, sort of a little bit at a time. Some falls here, some falls there, and then eventually it all falls back. Let's look at the law breakdown. First, you have first-degree murder and homicide felony murder. In Michigan, first-degree murder requires clear evidence of premeditation and intent. The additional homicide felony murder charge implies the killing occurred during the commission of another felony. Here, the other felony is child abuse. You have the potential for child abuse and cruelty charges. All right. First-degree child abuse in Michigan and ongoing child cruelty charges in Georgia involving the younger son all underscore the severe legal consequences for crimes committed against minors. Concealing a death. Michigan law mandates that any individual who discovers a deceased person must promptly notify law enforcement or a funeral home or contact 911. Failure to report is a misdemeanor and is punishable by up to 1 year in prison and a fine of up to $1,000. However, if a death is concealed with the intent to hide the fact that someone has died or the cause of the death, this offense escalates to a felony. The penalty is up to 5 years in prison, a fine of up to $5,000. There's also this charge of potentially tampering with evidence. It's illegal in Michigan to knowingly and intentionally remove, alter, conceal, destroy, or otherwise tamper with evidence intended for the use in the official proceeding. Death certificates and things of that nature are used in official proceedings. Such tampering is a felony. It's punishable by up to 4 years in prison and a fine of up to $5,000. If the tampering occurs in a criminal case and the maximum penalty a person can receive exceeds 10 years, then the tampering charge can be enhanced. The enhanced punishment is up to 10 years in prison, fine of up to $20,000. Now, each of these charges requires a prosecution to establish that the evidence meets that very high legal threshold that's required for convictions of beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, we'll talk about the evidentiary standards next. Now, let's examine the evidentiary standards that give guidance to both the civil courts and the criminal courts. First, you have mere suspicion. This is a gut feeling or maybe an unsubstantiated hunch that something is wrong or awry. The discovery of the shallow grave and the visible human foot, they raise basic concerns, setting the investigation in motion. Now understand that's a little bit higher than just mere suspicion. Mere suspicion would be probably noticing that there's something that smells bad in the backyard, but you don't see anything. Number 2, reasonable suspicion. This is a specific and articulable fact indicating a potential crime being afoot or happening right moment. Specific details such as the landlord's timely report and the physical evidence observed there at the scene provided enough evidence for law enforcement to begin a more thorough investigation. Number 3, probable cause. This is a reasonable belief that a crime has been committed, with corroborating forensic evidence, things like the autopsy findings of the child being smothered, along with witness reports and physical evidence from the scene. The police established probable cause for an arrest and further inquiry into Mrs. Pierce's background. Number 4, preponderance of the evidence. This is simply when your evidence shows it is more likely than not that your claim being presented in civil court is true. So remember, this is primarily used in civil cases. The standard helps illustrate how various pieces of evidence can collectively suggest that a claim is more likely than not true. 51% of the evidence support this is probably true. Not the highest standard in the world, remember that. Number 5, clear and convincing evidence. This is when you have enough evidence to show a high probability of it. More evidence is going to be required for certain types of actions, like fraud actions, administrative hearings, when people have employment cases, things like that are going to require more evidence pointing that a person's claim is true. We usually say about 75%. In certain legal proceedings, this standard ensures that evidence being presented is both strong and persuasive. Clear and convincing evidence is also a standard that might be required in some bail hearing. So it's a good one that bridges the gap between civil and criminal standards of proof. Number 6, beyond a reasonable doubt. This is the highest standard of proof. This is required in every criminal case. Prosecutors are going to be required every time to show that every element of the case was met beyond a reasonable doubt. So here, for charges such as first-degree murder, establishing intent and premeditation will demand evidence that meets that high standard beyond a reasonable doubt. In conclusion, this ongoing Brandee Pierce case is going to be a stark reminder of the journey from a disturbing crime scene to the potential challenges at trial. Now, we've looked at just a small piece of a timeline, the alleged incident October 2024 through the subsequent charges and the fairly rapid law enforcement response. The timing of these events plays a crucial role in shaping both the investigation and the legal proceeding. It's going to compel the legal minds to consider whether more timely interventions might have altered all of this from happening. As this case moves forward through trial, it's going to be essential that the state be meticulous in gathering the evidence so that they can build a proper case. I encourage you to share your thoughts. How do you feel about this? Let me know your thoughts on how the evidence, the timing, the legal standards required for and the rest to happen. Leave any comment below. I will leave you with this final piece of information that Michigan is not a death penalty state. If you found today's lecture insightful, remember to hit the like button, subscribe to Advocacy Alchemy for more legal lectures. Remember, this is Advocacy Alchemy, and I am Professor Ross. I'll see you tomorrow. And we'll come back with more body cam footage tomorrow, something more lighthearted. I wish you all have a good day.